This is Outnumbered on a fine Friday Eve. I'm Harris Faulkner, here today, host of Kennedy on Fox Business, Kennedy herself. Also from FBN, co-host of After the Bell, Melissa Francis. Radio talk show host Meghan McCain. And today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, co-host of Fox Business Network's Wall Street Week, Anthony Scaramucci. And as of late, he is also an economic advisor to Donald Trump. So we will pick his brain about that. But for now, you're outnumbered. Welcome.
Mooch.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here.
What'd you call him?
Mooch.
Mooch. You like that? That's good.
Hey, that started in junior high school.
That's right.
And it was about my last name, not stealing other people's food.
Oh, we didn't think
Although I'm doing that now.
Well, it's a lunch hour, so we'll make sure you don't steal it. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's begin with presidential politics. 81 days to the election, Donald Trump is headed to the key battleground state of North Carolina after making some staffing changes to his campaign leadership, promoting veteran Republican pollster Kellyanne Conway to campaign manager and appointing Stephen Bannon, executive chairman of conservative media outlet Breitbart News, to campaign CEO. And I mentioned Anthony is now their economic advisor. One of them. And on the campaign trail, Hillary Clinton said this changes nothing.
He can hire and fire anybody he wants from his campaign. They can make him read new words from a teleprompter. But he is still the same man who insults Gold Star families, demeans women, mocks people with disabilities, and thinks he knows more about ISIS than our generals. There is no new Donald Trump. This is it.
And the incoming fire, not just from Democrats, and an opinion piece for the Wall Street Journal. Some tough talk from Karl Rove, who says Trump's new team must keep the candidate on message and out of petty feuds or risk a disastrous November. The former senior advisor to President George W. Bush wrote this, quote, "The main problem with the Trump campaign has been Mr. Trump. He is an unguided missile, prone to veer off course and hit friendly forces. If his newly installed team was recruited to let Trump be Trump because they believe his attacks and populism have been too muted, then an epic loss could be the result," end quote. But Trump supporter Newt Gingrich says he is pleased with the additions to the candidate's campaign staff. Watch.
I thought he had added two tremendous talents. Steve Bannon has been remarkable as the head of Breitbart, but also in other things he's done with his career. He's been a movie editor and director. He has been a businessman. What Bannon has done is he has understood how social media works. He's understood political issues. He is a very aggressive, tough guy. He'll be a big asset.
And from inside the circle now, your perspective, Anthony, on those changes to staffing and what happens ahead.
Well, listen, I think the changes are great for Mr. Trump. I was with him all day yesterday. I think we're leaving out Paul Manafort from the equation. He's still the chairman of the campaign. Paul was very active yesterday, very much so engaged. So this sort of media spin that he's been replaced isn't true. He's been bolstered. What do good CEOs do when they need more help? Is they recruit more people.
But do they name someone else as CEO? I mean, that sounds like he's being replaced. When you say that someone is the chief executive of the campaign, that person then assumes the top role, correct?
And I understand that, Kitty, but you have to remember that his original role was to come in and help us with the convention. He was really going to make sure that if we had a contested convention, Mr. Trump was going to get the nomination. He graduated into the campaign manager. We can talk about that, but that's 2 months ago. But his real job and what he's been the most effective at over the 40 years of his career is just being a really good strategist. And so bringing those people in to help him execute that strategy, I think, is a good play by the candidate.
A real quick follow-up for you, Anthony, and that has to do with the number of now people at the top versus the number of people on the ground. You're going to need some field forces.
Well, you've got 6,000 people that the Republican National Committee has hired. We've bolstered that up significantly from 2012.
Do you feel like you're getting enough support from the RNC?
The RNC has been absolutely terrific. Reince Priebus will go down as one of the best chairmen in history. Okay, first of all, he should be Secretary of State. He negotiated 17 egos into this process. He was unbelievably impartial and fair. And now he's working alongside of the candidate every day. And even Donald Trump said yesterday morning at our breakfast, he said he's basically become one of his best friends. He's on the plane with him, campaigning. I'm sorry.
Can I just say something? Because I've been on many campaigns on the road, 2 years of my life on the road dedicated to a campaign. leadership changes, it shows that something's going wrong. It just hands down.
When John Sears was fired by Ronald Reagan, I think that was.
But if things were going perfectly and you were up in the polls, there wouldn't be management changes needed. And the people that are brought in, just let me finish, Anthony. I respect you, but let me finish. These are unorthodox choices. Bringing in someone from Breitbart News, which is a website that's almost dedicated to doing nothing but giving Donald Trump positive press, it is an unorthodox choice. So when Kennedy is making these questions and raising these issues, it's legitimate. And I just don't want to sit here because all of us are conservative and on the side of the team and not live in the reality that clearly things aren't going well in the campaign. What you brought up, Harris, a big concern of mine is that they now have more advisors than people in the field. People in the field are extremely important.
But that's categorically not true.
You guys employ.
They synthesize with the RNC.
But don't you think some people on his actual staff should be as well, not just the RNC?
We opened up 50 field offices 2 weeks ago. We've got one office in every single state.
Listen, if you guys want to go with it, that everything's awesome and everything's amazing, that's fine. But I just don't think it's true.
I see on TV. I know you're a little upset about some things that have happened in the campaign. I get the anger part.
I want to win.
I can empathize with it, but I think you're misstating a couple of things. We bolstered the campaign. We added to the campaign, which is what a good CEO would do.
So what's Paul Manafort's role now?
He's acting as the chairman and a very significant strategist. Literally, I was in a meeting with Paul yesterday before the national security meeting, talking about our messaging over the next 3 weeks.
One of the other concerns that Megyn brings up is this idea of tone, and Karl Rove, bringing up the idea that the new management in charge is about letting Trump go back to being Trump. The past few days,
media narrative, not the right narrative.
But Karl Rove is saying it as well in the Wall Street Journal.
I want to get in here with Kellyanne Conway, who was also
true, by the way.
So let Trump be Trump. That is categorically not part of the philosophy in the campaign.
So wait a minute. Let's watch a little bit from Kellyanne Conway, because she talked about this issue specifically. She's now on the team with you. Let's watch it, and then we'll come out.
I think we're going to sharpen the message, and we're going to make sure Donald Trump is comfortable about it being in his own skin, that he doesn't lose that authenticity that you simply can't buy and a pollster can't give you. Voters know if you're comfortable in your own skin. And let him be him in this sense. If he wants to deliver a speech, if he wants to go to a rally, if he wants to connect with the crowd in a way that's very spontaneous, that's wonderful. And that's how he got here.
All right, go ahead, Anthony.
Well, first of all, she's a brilliant hire. I think you guys will absolutely agree.
A lot of people fans of her.
She's right about the authenticity.
She's an incredible human being, and she's giving him great advice. And so her advice is to let Donald Trump be Trump, but recognize the role that you're in now. You're the presidential nominee. You got through the nomination process. You have to speak to the American people about being the president and what you're going to be like being the president. And I think he's going to start to do that. He's actually, the other night in Wisconsin, he certainly did that.
Yeah.
And you're going to see more of that. And you know why he's going to win? Because people want him to win.
Okay, I understand
Some of the
that,
polling right now is slapping him for the Gold Star family comment.
Yeah.
Some of the polling right now is saying, hey, act a little bit better. You're going to get my vote.
Okay, but my question is
for
those people...
after Labor Day, when he's ahead in the polls and the mainstream media is going absolutely crazy.
Yeah, okay, but I want to ask specifically about people who have supported him and people who want to support him and people who really want him to win. And that's the donors, and, people who don't make a lot of money, who have donated to this campaign. And Donald Trump said himself that he's sitting on a huge pile of money, hasn't spent any of it, and they're finally going to do the ads that many who also want you to win have been advising to do for some time. Well, isn't that a little bit of a slap in the face to the people who feel like their money has...
I don't think so, because we've got over $100 million in the bank. We're about to launch a big wave of advertising
tomorrow.
Tomorrow, and we've got a $4 million ad buy out there tomorrow. And I think you're going to see the polls tighten, which we all know they're going to, and he's going to get into the debates.
I just make one last point?
He's going to beat it.
I don't want to do, and Dana Perino made this point yesterday, I don't want to be like 2012, where I believed a lot of people that we were ahead. I believed Mitt Romney was going to win on election night, and I cried my face off in my hotel room. Right. I am not going to be... I think it's fair, though, Harris, and I'm not going to sit here and act like everything's going amazing on this campaign. We're losing with demographics. Conservatives have never lost before. White, college-educated people.
And this is typical for every election
I'm a super realistic person. I didn't say everything was going great on the campaign. Mr. Trump has captured the imagination of the American people, because the American people know that we're going going in the wrong direction.
There's still a large percentage of Americans, though, who have not made up their minds, Melissa.
That's true.
We know this. And so it's the timing of all of this might just be right. So
70% of the people say we're going in the wrong direction, though.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton will meet with a group of top law enforcement leaders today in New York amid accusations from Donald Trump that she is, quote, against the police. The Clinton campaign says the meeting has been in the works for weeks and is not a reaction to Trump's criticism. Among those taking part in the meeting, retiring New York City Police Commissioner Bill Bratton, Los Angeles Police Chief Charles Beck, and Lupe Valdez, the sheriff of Dallas County, Texas. Bratton has been especially critical of Trump, saying earlier this month that he lacks the depth of policy issues, but Trump casting himself as a law and order candidate, especially as violent crime has surged in cities during President Obama's tenure.
Just like Hillary Clinton is against the minors, she is against the police, believe me. You know it and I know it, and guess what? She knows it. Those peddling the narrative of cops as a racist force in our society, a narrative supported with a nod by my opponent, share directly in the responsibility for the unrest in Milwaukee and many other places within our country.
And here's Hillary Clinton addressing the NAACP last month, one day after 3 police officers were murdered in Baton Rouge.
Killing police officers is a terrible crime. That's why our laws treat the murders of police so seriously, because they represent the rule of law itself. If you take aim at that and at them, you take aim at all of us. Anyone who kills a police officer and anyone who helps must be held accountable.
Okay, and I want to point out Bill Bratton, who's is speaking out against Trump and is a fabulous commissioner here in New York City, is leaving to go to work for Teneo, which is the huge firm that is part of the Clinton empire. So as he's speaking and he's doing all these things, Harris, isn't it important to note he's on the Clinton payroll? Who's winning this issue in general?
Well, right now, the only people who should be winning are not being talked about, and that's the American people. I mean, this has been boiled down to politics now. And if you had any doubt whether Donald Trump hurt her by bringing up law and order, now we know the issue is one that really, really hurt her. Otherwise, there wouldn't be this answer back in the way in which it is. If you'll remember, right before Baton Rouge had happened, the week before, she was already taking some verbal incoming from police unions. And so she was already feeling that. And by making law and order part of his convention speech, he did some divots, and it's still hurting, and that's why she's still doing this.
Kennedy?
I think it also kind of ties into a Second Amendment issue, and I think she's very anti-Second Amendment, and you don't necessarily have to talk to sheriffs and police chiefs, because oftentimes those people are also politicians, and they're doing this stuff because of the way it looks. You know, I don't fault Bill Bratton or Charlie Beck or Lupe Valdez or anyone else at that confab, but talk to cops and see what they have to say about their presidential choices, because I think they'll give you an entirely different story as to whether or not they feel supported by Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. Megan?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Kennedy. I think Donald Trump's speech the other night is actually, I wish you guys had given it more leverage to get more attention, because I actually thought it was really good when he was he was reaching out to the African-American community. And I think this issue of Blue Lives Matter as much as Black Lives Matter is not an issue that's going to go away. Our own president has yet to comment on the incidents that were happening in Milwaukee, and I think she's pushing and trying really hard. But the leader of the Black Lives Matter movement came out saying the only thing that Hillary Clinton cares about is votes. So, you know,
well, they weren't happy with her, and they weren't happy with Bernie Sanders either.
Yeah. I mean, Mooch, it seems like the teams are unfortunately very divided on this. You know, I mean, it feels like you hear Donald Trump going out and saying we have to support law enforcement, which is absolutely true. But and you also hear Hillary Clinton saying, she kind of starts out with, we need to restore trust in communities, which is, you know, seems like code for, you know, saying the communities feel betrayed by the police force.
Well, but I also think there was one thing left out, which he did speak about, and no one's giving him the soundbite attention to, is he said that these left-leaning policies have actually destroyed the inner cities.
Right, it's about economics.
And so, at the end of the day, the next move for us strategically is to go into the African-American communities and explain to them why the policies that we have are going to benefit them, their families, and their children, and that's coming right up.
Yeah, you know what? It's also about the war on drugs and the 1994 crime bill that Bill Clinton passed and she endorsed. And she does have a lot to answer for and a lot of problems
in these communities. The Democrats control the inner cities. And
that's right.
New details emerging about the cash payment the U.S. made to Iran that coincided with the release of American hostages earlier this year. A new report has it looking more and more like a ransom payment, while Iran just announcing it plans to charge another American that it's holding. So did that big payment embolden the Islamic Republic? Plus, Tim Kaine may be on Team Clinton now, but he once said he felt that Bill Clinton should have resigned over his affair with Monica Lewinsky. How this could play out going forward.
All right, we are learning new details about the cash payment the United States made to Iran that coincided with the release of American hostages. The Wall Street Journal reporting U.S. officials wouldn't let Tehran collect the $400 million cash payment until a plane carrying 3 of the freed Americans had taken off. The Obama administration denies the money had anything to do with their release. No, not at all. Officials insist it was owed to Iran as part of a long-standing dispute dating back to the 1970s. You better hurry up and pay. But now some are wondering if the payment emboldened the Islamic Republic, as Iran is set to charge another detained American, accusing him of threatening the country's national security. So, Anthony Scaramucci, let's discuss this a little bit.
I like the way you say that.
I like the way you pronounce it.
Now you have one of the freed hostages, Saeed Abedini, saying that they were at that airport in Iran for over a day, and they were being told they were waiting for another plane. And it just looks as though this timing has absolutely nothing to do with coincidence. What do you think?
Well, it's obvious that it doesn't, and so it's a really hard time for the administration to explain it. I know they want to go back to the 1979 hostage deal, but at the end of the day, there was a causal relationship between the release of the hostages and the dropping of the $400 million of cash.
Yeah.
And so the optics on this thing are absolutely terrible. And at the end of the day, it's going to cost us something because now people realize that there are bounties out there that the United States is willing to pay.
Yeah.
They knew that with the Taliban trade, though. I mean, we don't know that cash didn't play a role in that, but we do know that 5 Taliban commanders brought home Bo Bergdahl. So we know that this White House makes some interesting deals.
By the way, to defend the president for a second, you've got to protect all Americans, particularly those that are being held hostage. So I'm not sitting here picking on the administration on this thing. I'm not one of those sanctimonious people that believe that we leave our people there without trying to negotiate.
No, I
just think the optics are bad here.
And when you meet Jason Rezaian, I mean, of course, our hearts are open. They're flowering open. We're so glad our Americans are home. This has to do with moving forward. I mean, once you put money on the table like that, that means that other people are going to expect that to be a sweetener in the deal. And by the way, how did we come up money short that those people had to sit on the plane? Like, not only are we making this deal, but we can't even pay it off correctly?
And you know, and Melissa, your nickname is money, and for good reason. It is your business, and business is good. So let's talk about this a little bit, because, you know, the administration has said that this was not a pay-to-play transaction, but clearly, you know, if you've got lives that are not released until the money gets there, and this is $400 million of the 1.7 billion.
Right, and that's what they tried to use to distract, was that the payment was going anyway, that it wasn't independent money that was being paid. But if you look at the timeline as it was outlined in the Wall Street Journal, when you have them leaving on a Swiss plane and there's a Swiss plane sitting with the money, and they, you know, need to clear airspace in order for everything to be traded properly and everyone to know that they had received what they did in the timing, it's pretty clear what happened. And as the president stands out there and vehemently denies it and says we absolutely never pay, you know, it just...
So if the money hadn't gotten there, if that plane had not arrived, would those prisoners be freed? And that's what the president has to answer. I mean, he has to answer honest questions like that. If that $400 million made its way 2 weeks later or 2 months later, when we finally had a normal banking relationship with Iran, would those prisoners still be in that country?
Listen, there's a lot of precedences that this president has set. I mean, starting with the red line and using chemical weapons, and then we did nothing. Yeah. Now we are giving ransom for prisoners in Iran. We're giving billions of dollars to our enemies who scream death to America, death to Israel in the streets. The foreign policy of this administration, and Kennedy, I know you and I see this in very different ways, but I think this will be the true legacy of the Obama administration. And I think my children's children will be living with the ramifications of how our president didn't lead during the last 8 years.
Timing was bad.
Yeah, timing was very curious, to say the least. And we'll see if the administration changes their story the way a few swimmers have, perhaps. Hillary's running mate, Tim Kaine, he once admitted that he thought Bill Clinton should have resigned after his affair with Monica Lewinsky. What he's saying now, and whether the past can really stay in the past. Plus, Hillary Clinton blasting Donald Trump's economic plan while saying again the wealthy will pay for her agenda.
Hillary Clinton is going after Donald Trump's tax proposals. The Democratic nominee has told a crowd in Cleveland that her Republican opponent's plan would only benefit him. Here she is.
He wants to give tax cuts to big corporations, millionaires, Wall Street money managers. He's even created a new tax loophole that we call the Trump loophole, because it's really good for Trump. It would let millionaires and billionaires cut their tax rate in half on a lot of their income. He would, by eliminating the estate tax, save the Trump family $4 billion. And do absolutely nothing for 99.8% of all Americans.
And sounding a little bit like Bernie Sanders, she also said the super wealthy would pay for her agenda. Donald Trump claims Clinton is another tax and spend Democrat who supports policies which have caused wages to stagnate for more than a decade. His campaign said in a statement, "For an economy desperate for a jump start, Clinton's plan will only act as a straitjacket." We've got someone nicknamed Money on the couch. You've got Mooch on the couch. Hash it out.
You know what? Can I attack the estate tax things first, where she talks about it's the Trump loophole? First of all, no one with that much money pays the estate tax. You have tax planners that put things in a living trust so that they don't get taxed at the rate. The only people who pay that are hardworking people who die and leave their business to a child, leave their corner store to a child, their farm to a child, and then that person can't keep it because they can't pay the inheritance tax and run the business at the same time because they didn't have money managers. There's no way the Trumps or the Clintons were ever paying the estate tax.
Yeah.
So that's just a total lie.
But can I ask, too, I mean, does anybody hold Donald Trump to the same standard as a politician who would make, you know, his plans as he is? I mean, he has lived through what you're describing. So I don't know that his supporters would begrudge him the fact that he has been able to do what he's been able to do because the system let him do it.
I think that the politicians make a mistake on the taxes. The taxes are ultimately a cost for services, whether it's for the American military, infrastructure, whatever you want to spend your tax money on. And what the Democrats make a mistake with is they want to use taxation as a form of social policy. And I think the average American really doesn't want it for that. They just want you to give them very good services from a public service point of view.
Not waste it.
But lastly, if you don't lower the taxes, we are not going to grow.
Absolutely not.
You're at the highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world. Even President Obama has called for a reduction in the corporate income tax rate. And so what she's saying is absolutely nonsensical, and it will completely destroy the ability for this economy to get out of the rut that it's in.
Back to the death tax. I mean, and Melissa's absolutely right. She's one of the super wealthy, and I would love to see what her plan is. You know, she talks about Trump not releasing his tax returns. I would love to see her full medical records. I would love to see some sort of a financial plan that she has not only for herself but also for the Clinton Foundation. You know, and here's someone, because you talk about people who make something and sell something in this country. The only thing that she has sold that has made her one of the super wealthy is access. And I don't think that's going to stop when she becomes president of the United States. She's going to continue selling it, and they will continue using the Clinton Foundation as a personal tool.
Yeah.
All right, we got to move on. Tim Kaine may be trying to dig himself out of a hole with his new boss, not to mention her husband. The Democratic vice presidential nominee once said he felt Bill Clinton should resign over his White House affair with Monica Lewinsky. Kaine confirming a Daily Beast report that he made that remark in 2002 in an interview while discussing another sex scandal in his home state of Virginia. Looks rather awkward, but here's how Kaine explains it all.
I had some feelings of disappointment back then, but you know, and that's now 20 years old. And when I'm talking to people on the campaign trail, they're not asking me about old controversies. They're asking me about tomorrow. What are we going to do tomorrow to have an economy that works for people, to have a stronger security posture through stronger alliances? And I hear a lot, what are we going to do to make sure we have a community that respects all? So, you know, past controversies aren't that important to me now.
Yeah, I mean, so do you think your feelings have changed?
It was a feeling I had at the time, but now I'm thinking about what do we do to help this country be strong.
No, that's some really bad spin. It's just bad spin all the way around. What do you think, Kennedy? Do you think the sins of Bill Clinton's past are going to haunt Hillary this time around?
I think stuff like this absolutely does, and I think these are the things that drive her crazy. You know, when she sees any sort of fissure in the ranks, it's something that really drives her bananas. And I think that this is the kind of thing that Trump is going to bring up during the debates, and that's why people are so excited to see them, because they could be loaded with fireworks. He was smart in saying, yeah, that's how I felt about it then, but he certainly overqualifies it now. And I think just saying, you know, time heals all wounds, that's convenient.
It was a long time ago. I mean, he's saying that's how I felt 20 years ago. Let's move on. Who cares? I don't know. You know, I mean, I thought his answer was good. I bet you're right that it does annoy her. I mean, it'd probably annoy any woman, but I don't know. I mean, it does seem like of all the issues we have out there on the table, this is not near the top.
I don't think that's the issue. The issue for today is the hypocrisy and how she's dealing with the woman's issue.
Yeah.
How she has to deal with her husband and his issues and how she feels about women and the edits that she's made on her website. And I think that's really where it is today. He's talking about 20 years ago, but really it's a contemporary question about her hypocrisy and where she really lives.
Yeah, the recent town hall where someone stood up and asked about Juanita Broderick, one of the women who had accusations against her husband, you know, when do you believe a woman? And Hillary Clinton's answer, well, I believe until there's evidence that I shouldn't believe. And then the website, the campaign website, changes about the dialogue about women and sexual harassment and assault and when they should be believed. You can say that it was 20 years ago, but obviously it was worth a present-day edit.
Yeah.
And a present-day commentary that she wasn't comfortable having with a member of a town hall that had more access to her than many media members. I mean, I would ask her about it.
But it also means something different right now in the era of Bill Cosby. And there's a whole new attitude and new, I think just, you know, young women don't accept the same BS that they once did about what men are allowed to do and not allowed to do. And Bill Clinton, as far as I'm concerned, was a predator in the White House. And I grew up very fast having to learn about what he did in the White House when I was a 13-year-old girl. I think his behavior is deplorable. I don't want him in the White House. People are raising questions right now publicly. I believe it was the New York Post of whether or not he should be allowed to have female interns if she is elected president. This is a very current topic, and they can try and brush it all they want.
As a parent, would you be comfortable sending your 19 or 20-year-old to Washington to work for him?
No.
When you devise a woman's card that looks much like the Metro card here in New York City, and I mean, if you go to her website and you buy one, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's got the little stripe. When you devise a card and raise so much money off that card, a woman's card, so what does that mean? Are you looking out for women? Yeah. Like, what is that card supposed to mean?
Look, listen, she's caught between a rock and a hard place on this issue. One thing I'm fascinated by is that Kellyanne Conway was just named the first female campaign manager of any Republican presidential candidacy in American history. And I just find it very odd that nobody in the media is really picking up that narrative and picking up that story. And so
that's a fair point. It's strong.
Well, I mean, there's also another woman running for president, and the media isn't picking up on that either. Harris and I talked about this on my show last night. You know, you have Jill Stein. She's running for president. She's attacking Hillary Clinton. The press is essentially ignoring her conveniently to shield from some of those critiques. So it is loaded with hypocrisy, especially the people who rationalize his behavior in order to protect her.
Just to further that real quickly, when you look at a real Clear Politics polling, and I know you've seen these numbers, there's a tightening between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton when you not just put in Gary Johnson, Libertarian, but specifically Jill Stein, Green Party Jill Stein, because she has that tint of Bernie Sanders. I mean, she does real damage to Hillary Clinton.
This is the year of the outsider. I had breakfast last Friday with Governor Gray
And she's
Davis.
a woman. Yeah.
Gray Davis, who was pinched by an outsider in a recall, Arnold Schwarzenegger, said to me at breakfast last week that these polls are going to tighten. If you don't believe that they will, because people are very frustrated right now with the direction of the country, and whether it's going for a Jill Stein or a Gary Johnson or a Donald
splitting
Trump
the vote
or splitting the vote, you're going to see much more closure and tightness going into the fall.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. New details on Donald Trump's extreme vetting plan for some immigrants. Trump says experts should look to social media for clues on potential terrorists, what he told our own Sean Hannity, and if it can work. Next.
Welcome back to Outnumbered. Donald Trump now explaining his call for extreme vetting of certain people immigrating to the United States. The GOP nominee telling Sean Hannity during a Wisconsin town hall he'd bring on experts who'd look to social media when rooting out potential terrorists. Watch.
You get very smart people, and there are those people, and they're very good at understanding what's going on. But beyond that, you use social media, because a lot of these people, I mean, they're better at social media than we are. ISIS, if you look at what ISIS is doing with social, they're recruiting over the internet. And I also said we have to end that. We have to knock it out. We have to, you know, some people would say, oh, that's a terrible thing. We have to end that.
All right, Trump also accusing the Obama administration of running a, quote, politically correct war against ISIS, putting us at risk of more terror attacks. So, Anthony, you're a man on the inside of this campaign. What exactly is extreme vetting?
Well, I think they're looking to the state of Israel and some of the things that they do at border control in Israel in terms of the questions that are being asked and the feelings that the people have as it relates to the country and the state of Israel. And so I don't really see that as necessarily controversial if you feel the way most Americans feel, that they feel unsafe in the country. And so I don't understand why that's such a big deal.
Sometimes he gets a little vague, though, when he says, you know, I'm going to put really smart people there. And I think this week may be problematic for statements like that because he puts smart people in place and then seems to fire them or demote them, and there's this sort of turnover.
Okay, so I didn't see a firing. I know you saw a demotion, but I saw some strategic. I saw some strategic movement, but we can debate that. Let me just finish this one point.
Yeah.
We have a problem. Okay, the American people feel less safe. We prosecuted 2 wars.
And it's a
we
strong
spent
issue
several
for him.
trillion dollars on these wars.
Than Hillary Clinton.
The American people feel less safe. He's trying to come up with a strategy to make them feel more safe.
Can I ask a quick question? Why don't one thing I would just like to propose, since you're on the inside of his campaign, I'm actually more worried about homegrown terrorism than anything else. Can't he put pressure on Silicon Valley to help vet what's going on Facebook and Twitter and God knows where else?
He said that to Sean, though. If you caught that soundbite, he's saying to Sean that we have to put an end to the recruiting. We have to put an end to some of the nonsense that goes on
That's
in
what he's talking about with the social media.
Yeah, that's if you are a civil libertarian and you start infringing on people's First Amendment rights.
Listen, I took constitutional law 30 years ago, and I love our Constitution. So we have to be super careful about that and how we view the Fourth Amendment. And so, but yes, you have to decide where you want to be, how much safety you want, how much liberty you want. It is a treacherous sliding scale, so we have to be super careful.
When you talk about the extreme vetting, though, I mean, if you go to the White House's own blog, they have an infogram where they show the picture of people coming into the country and what they do. And a lot of the language is exactly the same as what Trump is saying and what he gets vilified for. I mean, they talk on the White House blog about, you know, having people that are specifically trained to, you know, question very seriously people coming into the country, doing repeated interviews, rigorous background checks, seeing if they have any connection
to known terrorists. Are you confident that that's being done?
No, I think that's
because when you look at San Bernardino, and I want to go back to your point with domestic terror, because I think it's really important. With this particular enemy that we're focused on right now, the Islamic State savages, what they've been able to do is metastasize, but also grow a following via social media. So if you want to talk about whether or not the White House infogram is being followed, then why didn't they catch some of the Facebook postings, not only from the guy guy in Orlando, but San Bernardino.
Well, you know,
as well.
and that's a question for law enforcement, and you have people in the CIA and the FBI,
but law
even at the
enforcement
NSA.
has said that they need some backstop on that too. They
law
need
enforcement.
more
If
to
you
come
talk
from
to those people, I had a long conversation with Mike Baker about this, former CIA officer who appears on Fox News and Fox Business
no longer
regularly.
covert. No, he's overtly on Fox News.
But he says that, you know, the people who do these investigations, they actually want that stuff to remain online because that's the easiest way to track them. I mean, they leave a digital footprint every single time, and that's why I know. But that's why you can't shut down the internet. And you can't use Silicon Valley
as a fellow libertarian.
I'm not saying shut down the internet.
We're not enforcing the immigration laws either.
No, but Trump has said that. Trump has explicitly said
that is very important because we have immigration laws, illegal immigration laws that stand right now, and some of them are not being. So I appreciate the infogram, but again, I ask, is everything really being used that they say that they're using with the administration?
No.
And is that grounds for maybe a candidate like a Donald Trump or whomever to get in there and say, well, these are my ideas, and by the way, the law could work if you actually use it?
People want a new start, and they want an executive that's going to enforce some accountability.
All right, very good. One of America's top universities accused of applying a double standard.
Starting in Washington and in Philadelphia. And I particularly appreciate his service on President Obama's policing study, which has a lot of good ideas. Sheriff Valdez, thank you for being here. You've been elected 3 times, as I understand it, by the people of Dallas County, and your devotion to service really is well known. And Chief Thompson, thank you for coming from Camden and from the trenches to tell us what's working and how we can do more of that and try to create a better dialogue in our communities. So with that, I'm going to let the press have a chance to depart, and then we can begin our conversation.
All right.
So you 2 days off.
So we will come back out now. She's going to chat until the media members in the room get up and leave, and then they'll talk about, as you heard Hillary Clinton saying there, what they came to meet about. It was interesting to see who was seated at her right hand, and Melissa Francis here on the couch with us pointed out very quickly that former police commissioner of New York, Bill Bratton, is about to join staff of Hillary Clinton.
Teneo. He's joining Teneo, which is the giant consulting conglomerate that
not
is
campaign
part
staff,
of that is part of the giant Clinton empire. So, I mean, while he was a fantastic police commissioner, of course, and did a great job in New York, it's important to have that background in your head as he comes up and he, you know, says negative things about Trump in New York and he says positive things about Hillary Clinton, that he is on the payroll. So, you know, just keep that in mind. I mean, he's a great guy, but there you go.
You know, Anthony, as you watch this unfold, and I made this comment earlier this hour that Donald Trump conceivably made a big divot in her plans, if you will, with regard to law and order. By focusing on that in his convention speech, piggybacking off the police union that had really chided her on her response to Border Patrol as well, some of her response and her campaign's response to the underpinnings of racial tone with police departments and suspects across the country. And so it's curious to me to get your point of view, aside from economics, because I know that's been your focus, but you're there inside the campaign, how this plays inside the Trump campaign. I mean, this is a big, hey, you know what, she's almost talking directly to us, we must have hit her.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of disingenuousness from her on this because of the whole movement with her and President Obama related to the Black Lives Matter. But there's another thing that's about to happen. Mr. Trump is going to go into the inner cities, and Mr. Trump is going to lay the case out for the economic framework for prosperity and an aspirational society. The Democrats have controlled these inner cities for the last 50 years. It has frankly not worked. These inner cities are stultified, and so they're on poverty maintenance programs as opposed to real self-reliant aspirational opportunity. And so she's going to be on even more defensive come in September when you lay out the law and order piece with, and this is what we can do to make your lives better.
Yeah, so, and this is also an outgrowth of identity politics, which all politicians politicians to some degree play. But Hillary Clinton wanting to think that she could count particularly on the black vote. And Donald Trump maybe going a little bit rogue politically. People didn't necessarily see it coming. Focusing in on outreach to the black community with a different color, not black or white, but with green, with money. And so then my question would be, what's next for him? Is he going to seek out an African-American audience? I mean, I'm hearing from members of the black community that, you know, maybe now it's time for him to go beyond West Bend, Wisconsin with this message tested out.
There's no question about that. One of the meetings that I was in yesterday at Trump Tower discussed this very idea that we need to go out and make the case. You know, and you know, here's the thing. There are tremendously successful African Americans like there are Italian Americans. Yeah. It's not just impoverished people that we want to go to. We want to end the identity politics and talk about all of America and the opportunity that we have together if we get the policies right.
Well, you know, Republicans have not done a great job of that outreach and explaining how.
Let me just
one
say,
example, Kennedy, was Rand Paul. We did talk about
yeah, no, Rand Paul
absolutely. This goes back to Barry Goldwater. This goes back to him not signing the Civil Rights Act, and the Republicans' campaigns have repercussions, and this is a long history of Republicans not doing a good job reaching out to the African American community.
I'm going to cut in because we've got to go to a quick commercial, but we're coming right back. Stay close. All right, so we got to hear some details from inside the Donald Trump campaign today from our guest, Anthony Scaramucci.
Thank you.
And so we appreciate that. This will be interesting going forward. Now, Donald Trump has a 2 p.m. Eastern event in North Carolina. No doubt he'll focus on, what do you think?
Well, I think he's going to focus on the economy, and he's going to focus on security and jobs and opportunity. Those are the messages for the next.
Sounds good.
Good stuff.
Stay right where you are. We'll see you pop up online at Facebook Live, Outnumbered FNC, happening now.